Welcome, guys, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Rwake, this new album, The Return of the Magic, and more things relating to the metal world in general. So we are starting by asking, so how are you doing today? How is the band during the last couple years? Because your previous album, Rest, what? No, well, your previous album was released in 14 years ago. The Rest, the last one.
So we've been we've been raising kids for the last 14 years, and we're finally able to be fortunate enough to come back and release a new record and play some shows, and it feels really great to be back for sure.
Hmm, okay. Okay, I understand about this. So, now when do you start to write songs for this new Return to the Magic? When was the right time to create the new process for this new album? And all the songs new, or did you rescue any composition that left were out for your previous album?
The music came out of two sessions that so because after our last record, like I said, we were really enjoying the time with our kids, and our kids were really young, and so we kind of started to kind of separate throughout the country. People were moving to other parts of the country and stuff, and so we weren't in communication as much there for a while, even though we were still playing music and other projects, and we were still playing some music. Together as well, but we weren't as active. And then in 2018, I just started hearing this music in my head that was clearly wake music, and it just came out of nowhere. And luckily, I have enough equipment and I have enough gear, and I can, play all the instruments. So I was able to capture this music. And over like a 5 week span, we went from having, almost no new music to having an hour's worth of music. And so then we had an hour's worth of stuff that some of that went on to be in the new record, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we were all stuck in the house, and we learned to file share, and we learned to remotely collaborate. And so that was a spark, and we started to work on some of the stuff I'd captured in 2018, and we started working on cover songs. We did a Black Sabbath cover of The Writ, that was released on Magnetic Eye Records, and we did another compilation called The Movement for Black Lives. It was a Bandcamp only compilation, and we released one of the demos that we had done. And then in 2021, another session, just kind of another series of music just kind of filled my head, and I was able to capture it. And that was another couple weeks, and then we had another hour's worth of music. So we ended up having 2 hours worth of music. And so after COVID, when the world opened back up, we had realized during that time that, we need this, the world needs it. And so as soon as we were able to do it, we started developing these songs. We got two new guitar players on board that learned everything super fast, and we started developing into what it is now. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of where the music has come from and where we are now.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So, for you, how many things changed since you created the band in 1996? And also, your first album was released in 1991, and we have your sixth album on your career, Returns of the Night House. So, how many things changed since you created the band? Then, decide how many things changed, if there's something changed in the composition process now.
I mean, things are always changing and growing. And throughout the history of the band, our scene has changed. Our we've had some members change. But I think the key feeling of our music has always been the same, which is it's very ceremonial, it's very ritualistic, it's very kind of mind altering in a lot of ways. And I think that has remained consistent throughout our almost 30 years of doing this. So yeah, while a lot of stuff has changed, a lot of the stuff is just stays the same.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Now talking about a little more about the promotion for this new Return of the Magic. What kind of promotion do you have for this new album? What kind of plans? Perhaps you will provide more. You will embark in more tours. You have proposals to go to Europe, or perhaps you already working a new album because these albums came from 14 years of difference for the previous one.
I mean, playing music is pure catharsis for us. We love playing live shows. At the end of the day, I think we are a live band. And so we want to play as much as we can. There's six of us, so it's not really that easy for all six of us to be able to get together and to be able to play a whole lot. So just the offers have to really make a lot of sense for us, uh, financially, spiritually and everything else, so we want to play as much as humanly possible. Everything has to line up just right in order for us to be able to do it. We do have some shows coming up. And of course, we want to, go to Europe as soon as possible. But we just have to wait and see how everything lines up and,
Mhm.
make sure that everything's right.
Mm. Okay. Okay, and other kind of topics. This album it was released like last week or 2 weeks ago. So and for this one, so how do you take the bad good reviews? Do you have some time to read the bad reviews? And what's your opinion about this? Because some bands takes no feedback positive for this, and other bands take well, and other bands care. So how do you take the bad and good reviews, especially for this new album?
I think
We've
overall the
been.
reviews have
Oh,
been great. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think overall it's been received really well, and we're really happy with that. Um, Not everybody's going to get it, and that's okay. We're perfectly fine with that. But I think overall, it's been received really well. Jeff may want to elaborate, but I think overall it's been received very well.
yeah, you said exactly the thing that I was going to say. So yeah, we were after being away for a long time, you kind of don't know what you're gonna walk back into. I mean, 13 years, 14 years. We've seen the scene grow and change and evolve, and bands just get better and better and better every year. And so when you come back into the scene, you kind of don't know what's going to happen. And as soon as we released the Return of Magic video, it just the love started pouring in, and we were just really floored, and our hearts were full of love. And we have a lot of love throughout the world, and we're thankful for it. Like B said, not everyone's gonna get it, and that's totally understandable, and it would be weird if everyone did get it. So
That is right. That is right. So, and these kind of things, as you can say, so nobody will understand the music. That's completely normal because some people likes brutal death metal, other people say likes the metal, other people says hard rock, and etc. And that is the perception of each people. So, and for this one, as I meanwhile hearing this, I love this new album. I denote that you have a lot of textures, a lot of mixtures. Even I cannot say that you are more like a stoner bar and stoner band or a doom metal band when I hear for the first time. Now you have more thing something like extreme, experimental. I don't know how to describe your music. It's very difficult. But as you are the creators, how do you label the sound of this new album? For me, it's not yet. It's not anymore stoner or doom. It's a different kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that we ever really fell into a specific genre. I think I don't know how we kind of got, the sludge or doom like stuck, that title stuck to us. I'm not really sure. But I love the fact that you cannot put us into one box.
Mhm.
Um, we all have very diverse musical taste, and I think that shows when you hear our music. So for me, there isn't a genre that you would put us in, at all. I mean, the only thing you could call it would be Wake. Um, if I was to have to use any term at all, I would just say progressive because that doesn't limit you in any way. And I think we've always, as far as writing music, we've always, never wanted to limit ourselves to being any kind of genre specific band, um, uh, uh, we want to be able to do whatever we want to do, and we don't write music with a listener in mind. We're not like, okay, the fans are going to love it if we do this, or how do we think it will be perceived. We just write it for ourselves, and as long as we're happy, we're happy. And like we said before, some people are going to get it, some people don't, and that's okay. I do think that people are more open-minded to bands like ours that cross so many different genres. And our songs, I wouldn't even call them our songs, our most of our pieces of music are, at least like 15 minutes long,
Mhm.
so within that time frame you can get a whole variety of different styles of music, and I absolutely love that. And I love it when people acknowledge the fact that we're not just a doom or a sludge band. Nothing against doom or sludge bands, I absolutely love them, but if somebody was to just call us that, to me I would be like, okay, then I don't know if you were really listening, because there isn't one box that you could put us in. So I appreciate the fact that you noticed that.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, that's for me when I hear this album, because well, I remember when I hear for your first album, Absence to do the projection, it's more like, well, that's relative to some sludge stoner because some rhymes align to that. But now with this new album, there's a very different topic. For me, it's progressive, technical. I don't know, experimental in some ways. Who knows? Because you have a lot of influence to create an album. That's completely normal for a musician. So, and now with this topic about the involve everything of the creation of this new album, I denote one thing about this. So, one thing that captured my attention. So, it's especially cover art. I try to relate with some invocations, some tribes. So I don't know, how do you relate this cover art, because it's very interesting to see. So how do you relate the cover art with the music involved in this new return to the magic? Because something like the ritual, the cover art for this one.
I think the artwork perfectly mirrors the music. We had an idea from the beginning that we wanted to build something that was real. Every single piece, stick, bone, flower, piece of sand that is in the artwork was all hand placed, ethically sourced. And we knew from the beginning that we wanted to, build something real and then photograph it. As far as its relation to the music, I mean, it perfectly mirrors the music to me in every way. I mean, it's dark, but yet it's, like really, it has a very soft edge to it. It's like the artwork and the music are both born of the earth, and it's all been shaped by its rhythms and textures and its spirit. And I think that really conveys to the listener and to the viewer. So I think they go hand in hand, perfect, more so than anything that we've ever created in the past.
Mhm. Okay, okay. So, and one thing that also captured my attention since the beginning. So, why do you decide to put an R when an R on the name? What exactly the means with the name of the band? Rewake or Wake? And what is the
We
R?
just oh sorry. Yeah, we just call it Wake because we were called when we started in '96.
Mhm.
We just called it Wake, and of course there was already bands at that time that were called Wake, and it fit the funeral, kind of gloomy sound that we were going for, and the name was great and we loved it, but there was just so many other bands that had used that name before, and we're not lawyers, and so we were trying to find a new name or a way to change the name to where it was ours and only ours. And so one late night, we were all just kind of out of our minds, and our vocalist CT, he tried to pronounce Wake, but in his slurred state, he just said right. And so we were like, yeah, that's it. We'll just put an R on the front. But it's hard to pronounce that in just day to day situations. It's hard to just be like, right. So we still call it Wake. I think a lot of it too is it's pretty cool that different people pronounce it differently. It's kind of like our music, where it's very up to your adaptation and how you perceive it. And, it's just another way of being like putting it back onto you as the listener or viewer to come up with your own, because our lyrics are the same way. Our lyrics are very open to interpretation. And since the lyrics are very open to interpretation, as is the music, as is the art, I think it's very fitting that the name is as well.
Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. Talking about more a little kind of stuff, especially when you're with your kind of music, because as I said, it's very difficult to label the band. But nowadays you can hear a lot of new bands in the world. It's very difficult to label because the band's trying to mix everything. to obviously to get interesting for the people. That's not big. If you sound like the 80s or 90s band, you will receive just a comment. You sound like the 80s or 90s band, specific bands. But now there is a lot of things going with extreme music. So what's your opinion about this? About this, I don't know how all this kind of mixture that happens, especially into extreme music. Just extreme music has this situation because if we relate it with the hard rock, with the heavy metal, with power metal, no, it's the same. You can hear bands from the 80s is as the same with the bands from 2000. The sound not change. The thrash metal it is the same. Just the stream music changed completely or evolved in more things.
I love it. I'm a student of music. I've been following death metal since I first heard. So I heard Death's Door compilation in 1991, and I heard Suffocation and Deicide and Malevolent Creation and Obituary and Death, and I heard all of these bands. And so I've been a student of extreme music. Suffocation is probably one of my favorite bands of all time, and I've been a student of heavy bands and extreme bands my whole life. And so for me, I love it. I love watching the evolution. I love watching bands like Origin and Archspire just push the envelope and just get faster and faster and more technical. So I love evolution in any form of music. I love the fact that the new wave of British heavy metal stuff is coming back, and there's a lot of like power metal bands again, and I just love it. I think that music should evolve. It should grow, and at the same time, it should always stay true to its roots. And with every passing year, we just get more and more awesome bands. And I'm just waiting for the resurgence of the like the hyper blast, like the Deicide Legion era stuff. Personally.
Well, and I think a lot of people have like like they have like their comfort zone, and I think this is true not only to music but to life in general. There's some people that have their comfort zone and they like to stay there, and then there's other people that like to try new things, and they're always trying, looking to try new things, just feeding your curiosity. And so that's in life and in music. And I personally love trying new things, finding new things, whether it's music. And so I love that when bands are, doing or getting out of their comfort zone and doing something different. But like I said, I think that's in life and in music. You've got people that want to stay in their comfort zone, and you've got people that always want to push the envelope and try something new.
Mm. Okay. So, okay, that is more, yeah, that is true. So, and with this topic of the evolution, one thing that I captured my attention also just for the extreme music, as you said, Jeff, there's now Archspire bringing the limits with a more technique, with more perfection into the execution for them, and specifically for an instrument. So for this, and as you can see, there's a lot of perfection musicians in the studio albums. There's a lot of great records, not bad records. It's not like the 80s or 90s. I remember very well when 10 albums in the 80s appear and 5 are amazing. But 5 are not amazing. That's completely normal because there is no possibility, the economics, the social, I don't know. In the 90s, it was the same. At the beginnings of 2000s, it was the same. But now you have 50 records, 60 records per weekend. That's impossible to catch attention all. And all these 60 or 50 releases per weekend are sounds amazing, sounds incredible, great musicians, etc., etc. Now that is one thing that some musicians is not very receiving well because there's so much perfect in music that you have to forget which kind of binary, what kind of binary you're hearing, because there's no personal sound. There's all perfect. There's no error now. What's your opinion about now about this standardization of the sound especially into the extreme music?
Well, I also do recording stuff as well. I'm an engineer and a producer, and so having watched the evolution of technology. So everyone's got a home studio now. So the technical aspect has grown and evolved so fast that it's possible to release an entire record and barely touch an instrument. I mean, everything is MIDI, everything is samples, everything is triggers. And so, when we were growing up, like you were just talking about, like you would have to go into a studio and you would have to perform your songs from start to finish. And if you messed up, you'd have to start back over. And so that required a lot of practice and rehearsal. It required bands to be bands. Like you had to be one unit. in order to pull off a recording process like that. And so now the world has just changed, not only in the studio, but also with social media too. Like the standards have changed. So, with instant gratification world, like everyone wants it right now. And when you give it to them, it better be the best. Like there's no area to where putting out something that's half-ass or mediocre is going to do you any good whatsoever. You have to make sure that what you're putting out is top tier, and with the studio technology, it's easier to do that. So I feel like that's just coming naturally from the evolution of studio technology and just the demands of social media. I feel like back in those days, like you said, we would have to buy 10 records and we'd have to pay for them at a music store. And like, then you would get home and you'd only like, 4 or 5 of them, and you just wasted all this money on these other ones. But that was just the world that we were in. And now with streaming music, you can hear everything immediately. You don't have to just go drive to a record store and buy records and hope that you like them. You can listen to them first. And from a band perspective, you have a lot more tools to make these records. And yeah, a lot of them do sound like just, calculators fucking each other. But, I think that overall, I think that the fury is still there, the passion is still there, and there's still amazing bands coming out, like you said, 50 a day. So I
Well,
think
and
we're
I
still
think
we're
that's
still good.
Yeah, and I think that's just evolution, right? Every generation gets better than the previous generation.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that the generations before weren't good. I mean, there's still tons of good bands from the 70s, but every generation, I mean, what these kids are doing nowadays at like such a young age, it's absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to see, what the next generation after that does. And then I actually had this same conversation with another journalist, the fact that there's just so many bands now, it makes it, she was talking about how it makes it hard, to filter out to get to the good ones. But to me, I mean, at the end of the day, if your music is good, your music is good. It doesn't matter if there's 100 or 1,000 other good bands. If you're good, you're good. And it's the same with, being any kind of artist, just because there's, a whole lot more artists out there, it doesn't change the value of your art.
Mm. Okay, okay. Well, that is true. That is true. And we're very close to this interview, guys. And one of these related with this question is, as you said, there is an overwhelming releases per week. So there's more music, there's more musicians, but with more musicians and with more albums, with more records, the people doesn't have much time to create. So to hear all albums, that's impossible. I don't know any I don't know who have the most time to hear every album, 60 releases per weekend. Even we are media, we don't have the time to hear that much releases. That's impossible. So, and for this, what's your opinion about these overwhelming releases? Because now there is not a span attention, and also you decide to create an album for 50 more than 50 minutes, and the people just hear just singles now, especially for the trend of for the digital platforms.
Yeah,
Well,
we
that's the
struggled.
good.
Go ahead,
Well,
B.
and that's the good thing about having, like you would think having a 15-minute or 12-minute song, you would think that would not convey very well in this day and age, with people having so little time and there being so much, so many bands coming out. But honestly, when you listen to, what are that single, The Return of Magic, the single itself, I mean, it's 12 minutes long, but because it changes so much, it actually keeps your attention for the entire song. It would be different if it was 12 minutes of the exact same thing, so I think it's actually to our advantage, the fact that our songs are longer, because they are so diverse. And so I think it actually works to our advantage. Jeff,
Mhm.
if you want to elaborate.
I mean, yeah, and we've always been, long form music listeners, movie watchers, book readers. I mean, we start at the beginning and we enjoy the journey until the end. And so we feel like that's important to keep that standard with what we do. Like, yes, we could throw a 3-minute song at you just as easy as we could throw a 13-minute song at you. But what we do is we try to convey a tribal religious moment in time with you. In order to do that, it takes time. It takes time to get in the trance. It takes time to be able to, flow through the journey. And so, we feel like it's important as, students of long form media and art that we use that to take you somewhere, because it
It's a
doesn't, if
journey. It
it's,
really is a
yeah.
journey.
Hmm.
It's taking
And
it's taking the listener on a journey. And it's amazing to me how many people have said that they put the record on and then it was just like boom, they looked up and it was over. And it was like they couldn't believe that that was 50 minutes, because of, the dynamics is such a big deal for us. That would, talking about descriptors, dynamic progressive, is what this is the way that I would describe us. But it takes you on that journey and keeps you interested. And I personally think we do that very well. And from all the feedback that we've gotten, I think most people would agree.
Mhm. Okay, okay, okay. Well, guys, we arrived to the sad moment of this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. This last album is an amazing one. Congratulations on it. I did my pre-order. I hope so arrive soon. Sometimes delayed a little longer than expected here. So perhaps you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Methalarium followers.
Yeah, just thank you. I just want to make sure that it is stated clearly that we appreciate every single person that listens to our music, that watches our videos, like just anyone who's willing to go on this journey with us. I just want to make sure that that I appreciate you, and we love you, and just thanks for sticking with us throughout all of this time.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
and that
much.
goes to old and new listeners for sure.